So, I think we should first start with the introduction.
Okay.
Okay, so hi, I guess. What does it?
Hey guys, welcome back to our channel.
And okay, so before we start, I guess first of all, thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you for having me.
This is a random 2 a.m. thought that I had of how I just want to do some talking to people who regular people, not accomplished people in a particular profession, and someone who's doing something different. And then I was thinking of, okay, who do I know who's doing something unconventional? You're one of the first people who came to my mind, and I reached out to her, and she just wanted to do it. So here we are in a random cafe, embarrassing ourselves, but yes. So thank you for being on the show.
Oh my god, thank you for having me.
But yeah, so we know each other, we live in the same apartment and
Our parents go to the same workplace.
So yeah, I think that is how we know each other.
Yeah.
And then introducing you, this is let's just give it a, this is Gayatri Kasturi. Yeah. And so you can go ahead, introduce yourself, tell what you do.
Okay. So, hi. I'm Gayatri Kasturi. I'm a counseling psychologist. And that's about it. I mean, I'm a therapist. I'm a trauma-informed therapist. And I think we'll get into more about that as we talk.
So the whole purpose of this podcast would be to actually talk about how one can pursue this field in India, and probably the reality of this field in India, how it is progressing, how can one start off. It's like a how to start off psychology in India 101 kind of guide.
Okay.
That is what we're looking at. And so also, no phones allowed.
Yeah, I did not put it on silent.
No, not allowed.
I'm putting it on silent.
So if you can start off by talking about why did you want to start this? Was it a childhood kind of, oh, this is something that I find cool, I want to pursue this, or did it build over time, or was it because of your course? What was the trigger point, or were there a series of events that led to it?
So as a kid, I had very high aspirations. I wanted to become a genetic engineer.
Ooh.
In 7th grade. I still find it very interesting. It is very cool to think of. But then I started studying it, and then it got too difficult. And also, this wasn't my cup of tea. And this was in 7th grade. Then in around 10th or 11th grade, I wanted to become a doctor. So I did the whole biology, physics, chemistry. I did that.
And
then
NEET prep and all.
Oh, I did. I gave NEET also. I got a
Really?
very bad score.
Oh.
But I was also watching a lot of Grey's Anatomy and House MD. And I was like, I need to become a doctor. I still am, again, very interested in the whole medical and biological side of the human body. But by then, I had started developing an interest in psychology. So
how did you come across it?
So actually, I had a very rough time in school. So we will not get into that right now. That's a whole nother story. But I had a very rough time in school, and I was taken to a therapist as a kid in like 8th or 9th grade. And that's when I actually started liking the entire subject. It was like really interesting for me. So, and somebody helped me when I was having a tough time in school. So I wanted to help others.
So the person who helped you, were they part of the school system, or did your parents take you out?
No, my parents took me. So actually, this therapist, he came to my dad's office to give some basic, like, how they have some seminars in corporate workspaces. You call a resource person and then they talk about stuff. And he spoke about exam stress. And that day was one of the days where the parents or like the people or the employees could bring their kids and their families.
Hmm.
So I was part of that, and then I started going to him for therapy.
Hmm.
And that really helped me. So I started thinking, if this is a way for me to help people, why not? Because I've always been interested in that anyway.
Okay, this is kind of cool. This is what not cool, but this is something I'm interested in. And then,
Yeah, but again, I met my then therapist. I've changed my therapist and stuff, but I met him when I was in 8th grade, 7th or 8th, and I was still interested in, becoming a doctor at that point in time. And then as, my schooling progressed, I got more and more interested in psychology. And by I think 11th or 12th grade, I was still doing BPC and all of that stuff. And I was still preparing for NEET, but by then the interest in becoming a doctor had died down.
you probably see all the NEET aspirants and all the coaching institutes, and you just don't want to become a doctor.
Oh no, I went for coaching. I went
Ah.
for Akash. I went for ft.G. I went for all of that.
Mm.
That wasn't very fun. But honestly, by then the interest in becoming a doctor had died down. I still love the subject. I still read a lot of anatomy, and I still read a lot of medical journals every now and then. But honestly, psychology had like kind of taken a hold of me by then, and I started preparing for the psych entrance exams more than the NEET ones. I just gave NEET just for time pass.
What do you pursue in your bachelor's?
So again, I started my bachelor's in 2017. This was before the new educational policy had come up. So if you ask me about right now, I won't be able to tell you because the new educational policy is completely different.
Yeah.
So I did a 3-year bachelor's course and a 2-year master's course. I actually did it in the University of Hyderabad, and it was a 5-year integrated course. So it was an integrated MSc, and it was 3+2. So yeah.
And so you had to write an entrance for that, which was what kind of questions are you asked in an entrance exam for you to pursue psychology?
This was a very long time ago, so I'll just tell you what I remember.
No, is it like basic aptitude math, or do they have something different for you
so
to
they
qualify?
have basic psychology, 11th and 12th grade psychology in it. So you'll have to prepare from like the NCRT books and all of that. But they have English, and they had aptitude and a little bit of math. My score was not very good in the math part. But yeah, that's what I had in the entrance test for University of Hyderabad. And you see both kinds of people in this field. You see some people who are like, who want to help people, who are very empathetic by nature, who can understand, who are very in tune with their own emotions and others' emotions as well, who are very sensitive, like you mentioned. But you also see people who are just taking the course for the heck of it.
Like why?
Because, for example, they think psychology is easy. It's not. It's just as difficult as any other course would be. There's a lot of theory to it. There's a lot of subjective stuff. But that's what a lot of people think, right? Psychology is easy, arts is easy.
Correct.
It's not. First of all, I took an IMSc course, integrated MSc. So I learned it as a science, not as an art.
Correct.
So I did a BSc and then an MSc.
Yeah.
Right? So it's just as difficult as any other course, I would say. But most people think, acha, okay, psychology is easy, so I'll just get into it.
Correct.
Isme seat aa gaya, so I'll just take it.
Yeah.
So you see both kinds of people there.
Suppose if I am a student who's newly starting, let's say BSc psychology, what kind of subjects are there, and what's the method of teaching? Was there anything that stood out to you, and something that you enjoyed learning, anything like that?
Okay, so in BSc specifically, like I said, I took a 3-year course, right? Now the entire way of teaching has changed. The entire thing has changed. Now it's a 4-year course with the new educational policy. But when I studied, this is what I can tell you. we had cognitive psychology, we had social psychology, we had general psychology, experimental, all of that stuff. And we also had other subjects because in my university, the first 2 or 3 years, you studied a few subjects with everyone else. All of the other people who joined in 2017, we were all we all studied the same subjects, a few of them. So we had ethics, environmental sciences, we had philosophy, we had IT. We learned Python. I was bad at it. I hated it. But we had that stuff as well. And then again, in my university, once you finish 2 years while studying with everyone else in the same batch, you get shifted to your department. And over there, you end up focusing a lot more on psych.
Okay.
So once we got shifted to the department, we started learning health psychology. So the course that I did is an integrated MSc in health psychology. So we had courses on that as well. So health psychology, if you don't know, is basically psychology related to physiological health issues. So,
Okay.
for example, if somebody has cancer, it's obviously very scary.
Yeah.
It causes anxiety, can cause depression. There's a lot of health related anxiety because you don't know what is going to happen, right?
Correct.
It's a very scary feeling. So, health psychologists deal a lot with physiological health issues. We were also trained in counseling. We also had child and developmental psychology. We had counseling psychology. These courses were very interesting for me. Not
So when
child
you
psychology, but counseling psychology.
Yeah. So when you say we were trained,
Yeah.
so is it more of a textbook learning, or do you see videos, or do you actually practice it on your classmates, or how does that look like? How are you trained?
Okay, so we had theory, obviously. We were taught a certain model of counseling, and we also practiced on each other. Like, so we gave each other fake scenarios, fake cases, just a complete fake scenario. Like, if you are my classmate, you can come to me saying, oh, I'm a 18-year-old med school student who's binge eating or stress eating because there's too much of stress. So how will you counsel me?
Okay.
So I would pretend that you are my client, and we would give each other counseling sessions. That's how it was, and it would be recorded. We would give each other feedback on how it went, what could be improved. Honestly, at that point in time, I thought I wouldn't be very good at therapy. Like, I would not be a good therapist at all. But again, that's a lot of just you being a kid.
Yeah. And what about your professors? How were you taught? Like, okay, if a person comes and says so and so to you, this is how you should react, or is it more of just following your natural instinct? Like, how are you shaped into a psychologist, if that makes sense?
So, in theory, you are supposed to react in a certain way.
Correct.
You're not supposed to show too much emotion. You're not supposed to, suppose a client is crying in front of you, you're not supposed to feel that kind of emotion, but you are human.
Right.
When you're taught that you're not supposed to show emotion. You're taught that, you're supposed to remain calm, you're supposed to remain composed, and always be empathetic. But in real life, in an actual therapy scenario, it's a lot more different because you are a human, and your client also feels a lot better knowing that you're a human, knowing that, okay, something
you're not the only one feeling whatever.
Yeah. So I think what they teach you in masters is very, very different compared to what actually happens in a therapy session.
Right.
So it also depends on how many trainings you take after your masters. So certification courses, other trainings, that also shapes you.
Right after your work, I mean your education, I know that you took up a job, right? And how did that happen? And what kind of, so there's the corporate practice, then there's your own practice. So if you can talk about the corporate life first, because you've worked in both. So if you can show the contrast, the similarities, and all of that.
Okay, so the way I got my first job is so in your masters you have to do an internship.
Also, wait, I had one more question. The master's thing. So, do people just do bachelor's and leave, or is it like a lot of people who are serious about this field do their masters, or is it like I'll do my bachelor's and then just leave and do some other thing? Is that also common?
So yes, that also happens. So to practice as a psychologist, you need a bare minimum of a master's degree.
Right. You can't just do it with a bachelor's.
You can't do it with a bachelor's because you're not given the tools to
Right.
deal with a client. You're not taught proper therapy in your bachelor's, at least when I was taught.
Right.
Now maybe you are. Again, I'm not too sure. But for when I did it, we were not given the tools in our bachelor's. So a lot of people do this thing where they do a bachelor's in psychology and then something else, and then go and join a corporate company and work as an HR, and then continue to do their MBA and go into that field completely.
Correct.
Other people stay, do their masters. In my university we had this clause where it's an exit clause, so you can complete your bachelor's and then move out.
Yeah.
You can either stay in the same university and do your masters there, or take up a masters in another university, or take up a job, whatever you want to do. I do have a few classmates who went on to do that, and a few classmates who stayed back.
Right.
So yeah, quite a few of them actually stayed back, surprisingly, and now they have their own practices and stuff. So yeah.
That's nice. So you took up a job after your masters, and
Yeah, so in your masters you have to do an internship. My internship was at a neuro rehab. So people who have had strokes, or who have Alzheimer's disease, or who post surgery,
Right.
they come there for physiotherapy, for other kind of rehab, for occupational therapy, and all of that stuff. So a lot of these patients over there need psychological intervention as well. And they had therapists, and again I was interning with them.
Okay.
So the head therapist, the lead of therapy over there, she I knew her since I worked under her, and she was working with the company. uh, and she sent my CV over to them, and I got my first job through her. So I'm definitely thankful for that. And as much as that experience was bittersweet,
The internship or your job?
the job.
Okay.
So the job gave me a lot of good exposure. I went to corporate organizations as well, and gave therapy to the employees. And yeah, it was fun. So I also used to go to the same rehab as a therapist, as one of the lead therapists, because now I was no longer an intern.
Right.
So that was proper health psychology, and this specific company that I worked in also had tie-ups with organizations that gave dialysis to patients. That and clearly when somebody is going through something as horrifying as a kidney failure, it causes a lot of anxiety.
Right.
So we used to take therapy sessions for those clients, and it used to be online mostly. But yeah, it definitely gave me good exposure. But then it got a bit toxic.
In your so the job that you worked for, that was for people seeking medical care, or was it?
It was a bit of both. So people seeking medical care also wanted therapy. I also used to go to this corporate company, and they had regular like work-life balance issues and stress issues, all of that stuff, relationship issues. So I dealt with those kind of issues as well.
And it used to be like, what, in a day, how many people did you counsel? How did your how did a day in your corporate life look like?
It was hectic
Hmm.
because we could not, decide how many sessions we took in a day.
Right. Hmm.
So ethically, you're not supposed to take more than 5 or 6 a day because it's very emotionally taxing.
Correct.
You have to be completely present for your clients. You have to be in the moment all the time. You can't suddenly zone out and go like, okay, what
Yeah.
did you tell me?
Yeah.
What did you just say? You have to
Exactly.
be completely present. So
Hmm.
it was, um, it's a very emotionally taxing job, right? And in this company that I worked at, they used to make us take 8 to 9 sessions a day.
And 1 hour long.
Yeah,
So that 9-10 hours of just talking and
yeah.
bruh. Hmm.
It was very stressful.
Yeah. And this was what, 6 days a week or 5 days?
6 days a week.
6 days
Monday
a week,
to
and you're
Saturday.
bruh. Yeah.
On some days it would be less.
Hmm.
On some days I would take like 1 or 2 sessions and call it a day.
Hmm.
But on some days I would take 8 or 9.
And are these sessions online, or did you meet your clients offline also?
Most of them were online,
Hmm.
but I used to meet some of them offline as well.
Hmm.
It was very hectic
Hmm.
and very stressful, and it started impacting my health.
Yeah, I mean, this is 9-10 sessions a day is just bad.
That is insane.
Yeah,
It's not even ethically right.
correct.
But it impacted me a lot, and maybe there are some therapists who can do it.
Hmm.
I personally couldn't.
So did you see, like, did your graph of attention just go like this? Like your last session is just like, huh, okay, okay.
Yeah, my last session, I was not able to be present.
Yeah, fair. How do you talk for 10 hours straight?
Forget about talking.
Like listening
it's
and
actually being active and present in the session.
yeah.
Like, it is very, very difficult to do that.
Yeah, and if you don't seem receptive, people don't even talk anymore.
And they don't like it because
Yeah.
see, for your client,
Hmm.
for them it's the only session of the day.
Correct.
They don't know that you've had 8 other sessions in the day, right?
Yeah. Hmm.
For them, it's more of a, okay, why is this therapist not being there for me?
Yeah,
And that's not fair to them.
correct.
So that's why they have a cutoff
Hmm.
of 5 to 6 sessions a day, which is also very taxing. I will say that.
Hmm.
But now I don't take more than 3 to 4 a day. I can't. Physically cannot.
Hmm.
It
Yeah.
My back starts hurting so much by the end of it. It's just very difficult. You're just sitting there talking to them, being completely present. It's not easy.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's why it started impacting my health a lot. I used to fall sick every 2 months,
Hmm.
and they started asking me why I'm taking sick leave. And
It's very ironic that they hire people to counsel and then just exploit them and then ask you, oh, what is wrong with you?
yeah,
It's like
yeah.
ironic. And so what's the hierarchy in corporate? How do you, what position do you join at, and where can you go in corporate?
So you'll join as a therapist.
Hmm.
Okay,
It's called a therapist.
You will
even
join
there.
as a counseling psychologist depending on your degree. If so, I have got a health psychology degree. So if you have been trained in counseling, then you'll join as what is called a counseling psychologist, right? And after that, suppose you have completed your MPhil and you are an RCI registered clinical psychologist, your designation will be that. Your job title will be a clinical psychologist. And then from there, it'll become a team lead, city lead, manager, and it'll just go up and up and up.
So even if you're a manager, do you just like look after the workings, or do you still take counseling sessions yourself?
You do take therapy sessions. You also take supervision sessions.
Okay.
So all therapists
Hmm.
need a supervisor, especially in the beginning.
Hmm.
If you're stuck in a case, you don't know how to move forward with a specific client, you feel like you're going in circles.
Yeah.
Every time you're circling back to the same topic. You need somebody else's input.
Correct.
That's why you need a supervisor. And sometimes cases and clients can be very just taxing mentally for a therapist. So yeah, you need a supervisor, and that's how you grow as a therapist in corporate or even otherwise.
And in corporate, what's the pay in India like? What can one expect?
Peanuts.
And is it per session, like how it is when you're practicing your own thing, or is like month-end salary type of a thing?
So most corporate mental health companies give a salary, and it's a month-end salary type of thing. Very few give per session,
Okay.
but even per session wise, they'll take a cut.
Of course. Huh.
Yeah. So you're not getting as much.
Yeah.
It's very less. You can expect 25,000 a month.
This is your starting
Baseline
salary.
is 25,000. It can go up to 35 if the organization is good.
Okay.
But if they pay you 35, they'll also extract that much out of you.
Yeah, fair.
So yeah.
And nowadays there's like new companies, like let's say Rocket Health, that's coming up. How are they different from the kind of corporate that you just spoke about?
So as far as I know, Rocket Health and these kind of companies, they have psychologists as the founders and CEOs.
Yes.
The company that I worked at did not have a psychologist as a founder. So I feel like they didn't understand.
It's just like they had to do it for the company, like you
Yeah.
have to do it,
Yeah.
just another task kind of a
Yeah. And they didn't understand how much it can impact a therapist themselves,
thing.
that empathy factor was not there.
Right.
And for quite a few of these companies, it's more of a business. And they focus a lot on numbers and like how many sessions are you taking, how much money are you bringing in. And for me, I'm not that kind of a person. It didn't resonate with me, and I didn't want to continue working there, so I quit. And I think, thankfully, I have the privilege to be able to quit. Not a lot of people have that privilege to, say, okay, I'm done.
Yeah.
Or nahi kar sakti, I'm done.
Yeah.
So yeah, I thankfully have that privilege, and I quit and I set up my own practice.
You
So-
set up your own practice after this overworking
Yeah.
nonsense, and then so when you like, people love it when they say, okay, I have my own practice, but how do you start? Like, where's the starting point? How do you get your first client? How are you getting more clients? How is that happening?
So I was very nervous. So actually, my plan was to work for 3 to 4 years and then set up my own practice at say 27 or 28. But that plan got thrown out of the window.
Yeah.
It and I set up my own practice, and so the first few clients you'll only get through references.
Okay.
Most of your clients you'll get through references. From other therapists, from your friends, from your supervisors, colleagues, classmates, all of these people. It's all word of mouth. Your name will spread through word of mouth in this industry, and your clients as well. Like, if you are my client and you like the way I take therapy for you and you see progress, you can refer me to your friend. Your friend will come to me, right?
But when you first started, you didn't have the network, or
Oh, no,
how did you get that one person first?
My first client,
Huh.
my therapist actually referred her to me.
Oh.
Yeah.
Huh.
So my therapist knew that I was in this limbo of, oh my God, should I quit? Should I look for another job? Should I, start my own practice? And she is the one who actually encouraged me and said, you know what, start it.
Okay.
Start it, because that is the end goal of any therapist in this country, or in the world for that matter. Every therapist, the end goal is to have their own practice. And if that's anyhow the end goal, you might as well start early.
Fair.
And corporate work experience can only get you so far in terms of long-term work. So in India, most people go to these companies for therapy for the first few sessions.
Yeah, I was going to ask that. What's the duration that one person stays?
So in corporates, they'll stay for you for one session they'll take.
Huh.
Most of them, the first session is at half the price or at no cost
Huh.
for them.
Huh.
So they'll take the first session and then say, no, I'm fine. I don't need
Dude,
therapy
I'm
after that.
so guilty. So I signed up for one of the things too, and I just took the first session, and then I'm like, okay, yeah, it's that's what. What's the how many people in corporate do you actually work with long term, and you also feel like, okay, I've helped them and they're better now. Did that ever happen?
You want an
in
honest
corporate?
answer?
Yeah, it did.
5 people.
5, bro. That's a lot. I thought you'll say like 1 or something. That's a lot. 5 is pretty good, I feel. Or is
In
it
1.5 years.
Yeah, it doesn't it take a long time for you to actually help someone?
Yeah, but only one person I worked with for that time.
Okay.
5 people
Hmm.
came to me for a span of say 6 months.
Hmm.
One person, only one person, came to me for the entire 1.5 years that I was there.
Hmm.
So I didn't get long-term work experience in that company, or I don't think you'll get in most of these
Yeah.
companies,
Yeah.
because the Indian mindset is like that, right? You take
Correct.
the first couple of sessions and then you think you're okay.
Yeah, fair. Hmm.
So I didn't get the long-term experience that I wanted.
Hmm.
But now with with my own private practice, I have been working. So I set up my private practice in June
Of this
properly.
year or last year?
June of this year.
Hmm.
I set it up actually in April.
Hmm.
But then a lot of stuff happened and then I had to take a break
Hmm.
and properly started working on it in June.
Hmm.
So since then I've been working with a few clients regularly.
Hmm.
Like they come to me every week for sure, unless they take a break or I take a break. Suppose they're going on vacation or I'm going on vacation. That's the only time that they don't come to me.
Yeah. Hmm.
So I'm getting a lot of long-term work experience in my own private practice compared to when I was, working with another company.
Yeah.
So
So when you say you have, like, let's say I'm coming to you as a client, and how does it work? Like, I come to you, do we have a trial session to see how we are hitting it off with each other, or how does that work? How do you onboard a client? And do you also sometimes say that, no, I don't think I'm the right person to help you with this, and I will refer you to someone else? Does that also happen?
yes.
Hmm.
So for me,
Hmm.
again in my private practice, right? So I have they fill up a client intake form
Okay.
with their like main concerns, what do they want to work on in their therapy sessions, and then I have a 15-minute conversation with them. It's called a discovery call. You talk to them, explain how you work as a therapist, and then you know you talk and kind of understand them, get to know them a little bit in person, not in person, I mean as a
Yeah.
person. And then you make a call.
Hmm.
uh, so sometimes you were asking, if there's any time where you say, okay, you're not the right fit for this client.
Yeah.
So sometimes that is also a thing that happens. So suppose there's some topic that's triggering you as a
Correct.
therapist.
Yes.
Some therapists do not feel comfortable working with sexual abuse. That is triggering for them.
Yeah.
Some clients do not like working with grief,
Hmm.
because suppose they have just experienced something horrible in their lives and they are also grieving. You can't be emotionally present for your client
Yeah.
when you're also grieving.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
So yeah, there are always times where you feel, okay, I'm not the right fit. I don't think I can help this client as much as somebody else can. And you draw the line there and then you say, okay, I don't think I have the resources right now to help you, but I know somebody else who can.
Correct.
Yeah, so that's, you do have to refer some clients out, and sometimes they are out of your exposure, like your training.
Right.
If you have not trained in something, say for example you haven't trained in PTSD, how to handle PTSD, then you can't take up that client. It'll be unethical.
So when you say trained in,
Right.
right? So what, so are there is it like a method that we're talking about, or when you say training, you've dealt with patients like that? Because there's no watertight kind of characteristics that a person may have. It's so different. You can't categorize people in this field at all. So when you say training, is it like the methods, or what do you mean by training?
So you take up courses
For specific
for
kind of.
specific kinds of issues that people may face. So
Hmm.
I am a trauma informed therapist, right? So basically, what that means is when somebody has faced some traumatic incident in their life, I am trained in understanding that trauma and working with them so that they are able to process it and then reintegrating that trauma into their lives in a way that is helpful for them. Right? So I think, for example, you can take a training in a specific kind of therapy. CBT, I'm sure you might have heard of something called CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy.
Yeah.
Then there's something called ACT, acceptance and commitment therapy. There are different modes of therapy, there are different types. So you can take training in those. You can also so I have taken a training in EFT, emotionally focused therapy.
Okay.
There is something called EMDR, different types of therapy, therapeutic techniques. So, and some of them work for some kind of cases, some of them work for different. So you have to keep, you know, increasing your skill set.
So this is after your MSc that
Yes.
you be like, okay, this is what I kind of want to pursue,
Yeah.
and you specialize
Yeah,
in it.
yeah.
All right. And you took
EFT.
EFT. And how did you figure out, yeah, this is what I want to do?
So EFT is essentially it's a type of therapy that helps in processing trauma. So we all know that Indians in general have a lot of trauma.
Yeah.
Every brown kid, every Indian kid has a lot of trauma, and unfortunately, it's become so normalized.
Yeah.
There's a lot of, oh, this is how my parents are, this is how my family is, and it's become so normalized that not many people realize that it's actually trauma.
Yeah.
And then once they become adults, they realize, okay, this is what happened, this is how it's affecting me, and now I need to process it. So I think that's where I got drawn into trauma informed therapy.
But with that, I have a question. Like, suppose some events in your lives are so evident that okay, this is the event that is causing me to react in this manner. But sometimes it so happens that even though you have a lot of traumatic events in your life, you don't realize that it is those events, or you don't even realize that you're experiencing trauma, that your behavior is a result of that trauma. Then suppose if I am that kind of a person, and I don't know that there are specific events that are triggering this kind of reaction in me in my life, how do I then approach a specialist in trauma? Because I don't know that, I can't figure out what is wrong, like what I'm feeling, what is it triggered by, I just don't know. So how do you figure that out?
So sometimes clients figure it out on their own,
Yeah.
sometimes they don't.
Correct.
And then when you go to a trauma informed therapist,
how do I go to a trauma informed therapist? I don't know. I have, like, I'm just thinking, okay, I want to go to, maybe I'm like, okay, I want to seek help, but then how do I know what kind of specialist that I want to go to, because I don't know what I'm feeling?
right? So sometimes, again, clients figure it out, and sometimes the therapists themselves help. So when you have discovery calls with clients or potential clients, you suppose you're my client, okay, and you come to me, and we have a discovery call, and I tell you, ki, okay, this is how I work as a therapist. I'm a trauma informed therapist, blah 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 blah, and then suppose I feel like you need somebody else. You tell me a little bit about what's going on.
Okay.
And in that discovery call, I'll ask you, okay, can you tell me a little bit about your childhood?
Okay.
Or what happened in the past, your history, just a little bit.
Yeah.
Obviously, you won't feel comfortable because
first time
you don't
Yeah.
know the person.
Yeah.
It's very new. You don't trust somebody.
Yeah.
You're not vulnerable enough, and that's very normal.
Correct.
But at that point in time, it becomes the job of the therapist to say, okay, fine, you need this kind of a therapist.
Correct.
So if your therapist is able to guide you in that way, then you'll be able to figure out that you need XYZ qualifications, and that's how you can get to know and go and get the right kind of help for yourself.
Okay. And since you've been working with clients yourself and you've, grown as your own, in your own practice, what do you think is the reaction of the people who come to you? Are they still like, oh my God, my parents don't know that I'm doing this? Or is it like, I don't know, I can't tell anybody about this? Or are they more open about it? Like, yeah, I'm seeking therapy, I'm, bettering myself.
Obviously, so in this generation, Gen Z, millennials,
And do you have only Gen Z clients or do you also have older clients?
so I do have older clients as well, 40s, 45ish. But a lot of my client base is in the early 20s to late 20s
Okay.
age range, because I feel like they also can relate to me and I
Right.
can relate to them as a therapist.
Right.
Because if you look at a 60 plus year old person, they won't go to a 24 or 25-year-old therapist
Yeah.
and go, okay, I have this happening in my life and I need help for that. First of all, they may not feel like you're old enough.
Yeah.
They'll say, okay, you don't know much about life, I have so much of life experience above you.
Yeah.
What will you help me?
Correct.
Right. So they prefer to go to older therapists.
Yeah.
And people in our generation, Gen Z, millennials, they prefer to go to younger therapists.
Right.
Because they actually know what it's like to grow up with social media, with internet, with this in this day and age.
Yeah.
So most of my client base is in their 20s, and they are actually open about it.
Okay.
I feel the awareness is increasing in India slowly, very slowly, but it is increasing. It is a very refreshing sight to see.
Just one session of therapy cost, and because I know a lot of people who want to seek it, but they're like, dude, I can't shell out $1,500 for an hour of therapy. I know a lot of people who are in that category also. So what's your thought on that, and what do you think people can do when they are not able to afford therapy?
Okay, so in India at least, so the price or the fee per session varies depending on the person's experience, their
Okay.
skill set,
Okay.
and just a therapist's overall competence as a therapist, right? So some people charge 500 rupees per session. Some people charge as low as 300 rupees per session.
300.
Yeah, so most of these people they've just started. They've just finished their masters, and they just started their journey as a therapist. They're just newborn babies in the industry, so they'll charge as low as that. And some people offer pro bono sessions, which is free. um so, and obviously some people charge 1000 rupees per session, 1500. I know some therapists who charge 4000 rupees a session.
Yeah.
That is a lot. There are some people who can afford it, yes,
Yeah.
and there are some people who can't. Unfortunately, more people can't.
Yeah. So if I'm someone, I want to seek therapy and I can't shell out that kind of money, what would you recommend to me?
um so you can try out organizations
Organizations meaning?
like Rocket Health, these kind of organizations.
But even Rocket Help, check it out, it's almost like 1200,
Yeah.
1300 per session.
You're better off taking it with a private practitioner
Yeah.
who charges lesser, you know.
So you're saying if I really want to, I can go and find
Yeah.
private practitioners who will charge in 300, 400
Yeah.
rupees, and it's good enough.
Yeah, it is. So some private practitioners also offer a sliding scale.
What's a sliding scale?
So essentially, a sliding scale is between, so suppose a therapist charges anywhere between 1000 and 1500. You pay what you're comfortable paying
Okay.
in that budget. Your minimum has to be 1000. Your maximum can be 1500 also. But if you feel comfortable paying 1200, you pay 1200.
Yeah.
But also sometimes it depends on the intensity of the case. Suppose there's a lot of processing that has to be done, trauma processing or something like that. Or suppose that time zone differences. So I have clients from the UK, from Oman, from Canada, whatever. There's a 12-hour gap.
Correct.
I am staying up at 12 in the night for them to take a session at 12 in the afternoon for their time, right?
Yeah.
So that would be slightly extra because you have to see your own health, your own timings, all of that. So you have therapists in a lower budget as well.
You just need to look for them.
You just need to look for them. And so as therapists, we all have contacts of other therapists. We put it out in our circles and go like, okay, I'm looking for a therapist who can work with these concerns in this budget. And you start getting references. And that's how you build your network. And if they are also looking for one of their clients friends or something like that, they'll refer you.
Yeah.
You build your reference circle like that.
So Gayatri has her own practice and it's called Yuuki Counselling. And if you can tell what's Yuuki and why did you come up with that name and what do you do differently in your counseling?
Okay. So Yuki actually
Yuki,
means
sorry.
courage
Okay.
in Japanese. So there are a few reasons why I named it courage, or like a word that means courage, right? I lost my grandmother recently, and she always stood for courage in her life. She was always a very courageous, brave woman, and I really wanted to honor her in some way. And I started thinking of names, and she was always, she learned Sanskrit and stuff. So I started thinking of names in Sanskrit, and none of them resonated with me. And I'm a big anime fan. I love anime, I love K-drama, I love all of that stuff. So I decided to go in the
merge both your worlds.
Yeah. I decided to merge it. And Yuki means courage in Japanese. So I thought, you know what? It resonates with me. I like the word courage because it plays a big role in mental health as well. Talking about it, finding help, getting the right kind of help takes a lot of courage. It's a very, very brave first step. So it is very important for people to have that kind of courage. And what better word?
Yeah, that's actually a really nice name. And I like your logo also. Why is your logo a fish, if I'm not wrong?
It's a koi fish.
Yeah, why is it?
So koi fish symbolizes growth and perseverance. So that also signifies a lot in therapy, right? So you come to therapy to heal yourself, to grow, to persevere, and just hang on and get the right kind of help. So I thought,
yeah, actually,
what
I really
better
like
than a
it.
koi fish?
Yeah, and it's so, I really like your logo and your name and all. And
thank you.
And how, like, so I know that, I mean, a little bit of my research, I know each psychologist or each counselor, sorry, has their own way of dealing with people, right? Would you say that you have a specific style that you know have?
So I would say, again, like when you are taught in masters, you are taught to be very calm, composed. I would say I'm a very human-like therapist, which is thankfully now more and more therapists in this generation are becoming more human-like. They're showing that they are also human.
Right.
It's very validating for a
Right.
client to see that. Suppose you're talking to me about some sort of massive traumatic incident and I start tearing up a little.
Right.
You will feel that, okay, what happened to me is actually bad.
Right.
What happened to me is not normal. What happened to me, I'm okay feeling this way.
Correct.
And it makes a lot of difference. A lot of the older therapists are slowly turning towards this style of therapy now, which is really refreshing to see.
And I've often had this doubt, like, suppose I have something that I'm dealing with, and usually I'm not someone who like opens up. I don't know, by nature I'm like that. But when someone else says something to me that is kind of on the lines of what I have been feeling, I feel like, damn, like I feel that too, right? So when you are having your sessions, do you often sometimes share what happened in your own life so that it becomes more relatable to the client, or is it just
Absolutely.
okay?
Absolutely.
Hmm.
Suppose a client is facing some sort of grief.
Right.
They just lost their pet, or
Hmm.
they lost somebody in their life, and they're trying to deal with it.
Hmm.
And it's very difficult. Obviously, you're dealing with a void in your life.
Right.
You can tell them about your grief.
Hmm.
You can tell them about how distraught you were, how broken you were as a human being, and it
Yeah.
makes them feel like their grief is not weird.
Correct.
Their grief is not something that is wrong, or I had I had to tell so many of my clients about, you know, things that I faced, which was similar to their concerns.
Right.
And they feel very validated when that happens. They
Hmm.
feel like, okay, I'm not weird. I'm not crazy.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not alone.
Correct.
That's what they feel.
Yeah.
That loneliness is removed from the equation when you tell them that I faced the same thing. I'm a therapist.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I was so broken when this happened to
Exactly.
me.
Like when you think of a therapist, you think they're so emotionally sought out that, and then when you actually hear someone in professional in this field talk like that, it does feel very validating.
Yeah, because we're also humans.
Mm.
It's not like doctors can't fall sick,
Correct. Yeah.
right? We
Mm.
also face um, all of these issues.
Mm.
The only difference is we are a little more in tune with our emotions.
Mm.
So we understand, okay, we are facing this.
Yeah.
That's the only difference.
Does that happen to you? Like, suppose you learned a new technique or something like that, and you find yourself in a similar situation. Do you often try to, use it? And does that happen, or
Absolutely.
yeah?
Absolutely. I think it comes with the course.
Huh.
You take up therapy, you take up psychology as a course, and you start self-diagnosing.
Yeah.
You start, okay, I have this disorder, I have anxiety, I have depression, I'm a sociopath, I'm a this, I'm a that. You start self-diagnosing
Mm.
all the time.
Mm.
And if you learn a new technique, you definitely practice it on yourself.
And do you think you learning all of these years of education, do you think that helped you become, understand yourself better, regulate your emotions better? Did that help you, or?
I think
Mm.
it's more of life experiences that help.
Mm.
So as a therapist, life experiences matter a lot.
Right.
I think this is one of the few professions where your own life experiences help you in your profession.
Mm.
So if you have lost somebody in your life recently or in the past sometime, you coming out of that experience, you dealing with it, helps you help others, right?
Mm.
You having health anxiety
Mm.
helps you as a therapist to help your clients.
Mm.
So life experiences matter a lot.
Mm.
I think it matters a little more than education as well.
Mm.
Obviously, education matters. Yeah, you can't practice it without a master's
Yeah.
and without further training and stuff like that. But life experiences matter a lot.
Mm.
Life experiences help in understanding yourself.
Mm.
Once you understand yourself better, you can help others better.
Yeah. And now that you've been practicing for a while, would you say that you kind of have your own style, your own methods? Would you say that, or do you still kind try to replicate what you learned, or now you're like, okay, I'm going to mix some of my own spice into it, and something like that?
I think I'm still developing my style.
Right.
I'm still discovering my niche. I'm still trying to understand what I can do better as a therapist. I'm still obviously trying to learn more, get a couple of more trainings, understand how I can become better. And yes, you obviously try and replicate what you learn
Yeah.
because that's the point of training.
Right.
But you also take that knowledge and add your own little twist to it.
Yeah.
And it depends on what your client needs.
Mm.
If your client, so sometimes clients come to you just to have a sounding board. They just need to talk, they need to vent, and you just need to listen to them. And sometimes clients are just looking for validation. It depends on what the client needs. So I think I would say I'm still developing my style.
So when you said like people come to you if they want to vent or if they but do you often find people like suppose I come to you and I did something wrong, right? And then would you tell me that see I know this is what you've done but it's kind of wrong, or do you just help them cope with what how does it work? Is my question.
Uh, so as a therapist, you always have to offer a non-judgmental stance.
Yeah, so even if I did something wrong, you wouldn't tell me that okay what you did is not too right.
You would.
Okay.
You would. But it would also be, so suppose somebody has, in a fit of rage or in a fit of anger, you take this glass and throw it on the ground.
Yeah.
And that's how you cope with your emotions. You obviously, you tell them that it's not right, but you also follow up by saying, I know that this is all you could do with the resources that you had at that point in time. But now we will try and give you more tools, give you a better toolkit that you can use whenever you're angry, so that you don't have to actually go and throw a glass down.
Yeah.
So you follow up with that kind of stuff while also telling them that okay, this is not exactly right.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And is it like okay we met this week, that in the coming weeks you try to do like you tell them that this is maybe something that you can work on like homework per se, and then they come back with you after doing that?
Yeah, naturally they have. So we give these things called cognitive homework, not or just regular homework in general. So
can you give me an example of what it might look like?
it might look like something as simple as thinking about a certain topic, thinking about a certain feeling that you're having. It can also look like something like journaling, writing down your feelings on a piece of paper, in a book, on your phone, whatever it is. Just writing down your feelings. Or it can be something like you have set a routine that you want to work on, and it can be following that, or writing down the number of days that you have followed that.
Yeah.
It can be something as simple as that. It's most of the time is not that difficult, because so therapy is a collaborative effort.
Right.
The client has to want to help themselves.
Yeah.
Therapy is not giving advice.
Correct.
You don't, as a therapist, I don't give advice. I don't say you have to do this for your life to get better.
Yeah.
Uncles, aunts, moms, dads, parents, everyone can do that.
Yeah.
So therapy is not giving advice. Counseling therapy is more of helping the client help themselves, offering a third person point of view so that they understand what's going on and they figure out how to help themselves better.
So what do you do if suppose a client comes to you and they just like you said they should be willing to help themselves, but they find it really hard to just get themselves to do it. You say if, like you said, think about this feeling and come back and we'll talk about it, right? And they're like very dismissive about it. Or suppose they come to you and say something and you just don't know how to react. Has that ever happened to you?
Yes.
Then what do you do in such a situation? Like I come and I tell you so many things that you yourself are like, whoa, like that's a lot. How do you react to such situations?
So sometimes as a therapist you can say, hey, I need a bit of, like, I need a minute. You've told me a little bit too much for me to process, and I don't know how you are dealing with it. It's so much. I myself need a minute. And you validate them in that way.
Correct.
While also taking a minute for yourself. Right? But then sometimes you start to, you kind of say, okay, let's start at X. And then we'll go deeper into all of the other points that you've said. So you kind of dissect it into smaller fragments.
Yeah.
And then you deal with it in that way. There are multiple ways of dealing with you yourself being overwhelmed.
Yeah.
And sometimes I just have a stress ball with me in sessions. Yeah, it's sometimes it can get very, very stressful. So you have a stress ball with you. Sometimes it can get triggering for you as a therapist. Suppose like I said, I lost my grandmother recently, and I had a client who was talking about grief, and I had to, use that stress ball and like kind of divert my attention
Yeah.
from my own grief.
Yeah.
So that's all part of being a therapist. That's what makes you who you are as a therapist.
Yeah.
Your own life experiences, your trainings, the way you came out of those life experiences, or how you're just coping with them. You're not out of it.
Yeah.
Things like grief, you can't ever come out of it fully, right? But just how you cope with it.
And like I said, like I sign up for this, but I'm not doing, like, I'm trying to help myself, but then again I'm like, I'm not doing things that you've asked me to do, or
So
following certain things, and I'm
Mhm.
still, like you said, going around in circles.
Yeah.
So does that happen, and how do you deal with clients like?
That does happen. So we start to ask them why that's happening. Why do you think that you're not able to work on a certain thing?
Yeah.
What is something that is stopping you? What is becoming a bit of a roadblock? And then we work on that. So you always find things that you can work on. And once they work on that roadblock, then they'll be able to work on what's actually their goal, what they've been trying to do.
Yeah. So and how long do you work with a client for? Is it fixed, like let's say you'll be like, okay, let's try this for a month or two, or is it like you work with them till they themselves feel like, okay, you know what, I'm good with myself now?
Some clients come to you for 2 sessions and call it quits. Okay.
Yeah.
Some clients come to you for 4 years. Some clients come to you for 6 months and they actually feel better.
So who decides it? Is it you who decide? Like, you know how it happens in Dear Zindagi, that he's like, yeah, you know what, you're good to go, and you can just you're good to deal with yourself now, or do you put an end to it, or do the clients themselves put an end to it?
So it's a bit of both.
Mm.
So sometimes, as a therapist, you feel that um, this client is actually able to deal with themselves. This client is actually able to handle their emotions, regulate themselves properly, and then you feel like, okay, there's less and less stuff that you're talking about in sessions.
Yeah.
They're able to deal with it. So you terminate at that point in time. And sometimes the client only feels like, okay, I need a break. It's getting too overwhelming for me. It's becoming either financially draining or something like that. Or they feel like, okay, I think I'm good. And then they reduce the number of sessions and then you terminate.
Like you taper it off.
Yeah, you taper it off. It's not all, today we had one session, tomorrow we taper it.
Yeah.
Right? That's not, tomorrow we cut it off. You taper it. So instead of once a week, you'll say, okay, let's meet once in 2 weeks. Then after a few months of doing that, then you'll say, okay, let's meet once in a month and see how you're going. Then you cut it off. Then you terminate.
And did it ever happen, like a client, suppose it's again human tendency, when you always have someone, like, you know that, okay, something bad happened to me this week and I can go and talk to my therapist about it and I will feel better. Does it ever happen that a client gets emotionally latched upon you, that they feel like, okay, I need them in my life for me to deal with my life?
Absolutely. Because as a therapist, you're there for them.
Yeah, exactly.
You're completely emotionally there for them at all times. You are non-judgmental. If you won't talk to your friend about a certain thing, they can always judge you. They can always
Yeah, and
say,
they might take your side also. It's not unbiased as such.
Your friends, your relatives, your parents, they'll be there for you, yes, but they're also, they don't have a non-judgmental stance.
Yeah.
Right? They can go and say something which hurts you in some way or the other. Not saying that your friends will hurt you, but some things that your friends or your parents say do hurt.
Correct.
Right? Your therapist won't say things like that. Your therapist is always non-judgmental, and they're there for you 100%.
Yeah.
And obviously, you will get attached to that, right?
Yeah, it's only
human tendency. So obviously, you'll have to draw lines and boundaries and say, okay, this is not done. Suppose your client is texting you at 12 in the night for multiple days. You can send them subtle hints saying, okay, this is not done, and I won't either I won't be responding to this, or I'll respond to this specific message when I'm working again. So that's, it's normal for your client to get attached, to get invested, but you should also be able to set those boundaries.
Yeah. So, and where do you see Yuuki, like how big, or how where do you see yourself taking this?
Honestly, so I work remotely, and
Do you also have an office like Dr. Jug from where you have
not
multiple
yet.
chairs, different chairs? I love his office.
It is very
It's so,
cozy.
yeah.
I do want to have that kind of an offline setup,
Mm.
but that is a plan for, somewhere down the line, not
Yeah.
right now.
Mm.
Right now I want to be able to go on workations, go work sitting in any corner of the world and working from there, while also traveling. So I love traveling. So yeah, I think that is my goal for now. But I think it'll take time for me to figure out where it needs to go.
Yeah.
I've just started, right, a couple of months ago.
And you're also doing so well for yourself. Like you said, you have 3-4 clients every day, and when you said that that's the bandwidth that a psychologist can possibly have, and you're already there.
Thank you. I think, I don't know about other therapists, but for me, I can't do more than 3 a day.
Yeah.
That is very taxing. So yeah, I think I also want to become a supervisor at some point in time.
Supervisor, like,
So, like I said, therapists need supervisors, right?
oh yeah.
When you're stuck in a session, you're stuck in a case, and you need help, you go to a supervisor. And they help you out. They help you figure out your journey as a therapist, understand, what trainings you might need to take, other things like that. I want to do that as well. But that's that's something that's still in the works.
Do you yourself have a supervisor?
Yeah, I do. I have a supervisor, I have a therapist. Every therapist will have those two. Every therapist will have their own therapist. Every supervisor will also have their own therapist.
Yeah. Where does that chain end? Like, so therapist has a therapist, has a therapist, has a therapist.
I don't really know,
Yeah.
because my therapist also has a therapist. We all take therapy for each other.
Yeah.
It's nice that way. And it's a lot of fun working with therapists, actually. Yeah.
And what else? I think I've asked you everything that I want to ask you. Okay. How do I open your iPad? Oh, new clients. You started this. Oh yeah, and I wanted to ask you. Suppose someone watching this right now wants to do what you're doing. They want to study psychology and eventually become a counselor themselves. Can you tell some tips that you did and that really worked for you, and that you would like to give as an advice, and some things that you would, if you're starting your whole journey over again, something that you would do a little differently, if you have anything like that?
I think that I would take more trauma-informed courses from the beginning.
Okay.
So I think TASTE Mumbai offers that uh, in the master's level itself. I had to do it after my master's, but again, it all depends on finding your niche, and that comes with experience.
Yeah.
That comes after some time. So there's not much that I would do differently per se, but maybe doing something more trauma informed right from the beginning is something that maybe I would do differently. But I think so I was having this conversation with one of my relatives' nieces the other day, and she was asking me the same things. She's also doing bachelor's in psychology, and I was telling her that doing as many internships as you can is something that's good, because at the very least you'd be able to eliminate things that you don't want to work in.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like I did an internship working with children and I thought that it's not for me. I realized that I can't do it. I really can't. There are some people who can, but I can't. So you'll be able to eliminate areas that you don't want to work in. You'll be able to understand what you do want to work in. So getting exposure at a younger age is always good. Yeah. But apart from that, I think it's more of a take it as you go kind of a thing. Because like I said, therapy or being a therapist has a lot to do with your own life experiences. If you experience something and then you're able to help others who are going through that, it's a lot better than studying it in theory.
Yeah. Fair enough. And lastly, how do people reach out to you if they want you as a therapist? Do you have any? How do they reach out to you?
So you can reach out to me by email. You can also reach out to me on Instagram. I have an Instagram account.
I'll link them down below.
You can reach out to me on those two. You can also reach out to me on LinkedIn, I guess. But mainly Instagram, email. I have a number, but obviously I will not be sharing that on YouTube. But yeah.
What's your Instagram, if you can just say it?
Yuuki_Counselling. So YUUKI_Counselling.
Yeah. All right, then I think we are done. This is not as weird, except for random people coming in the background.
I hope the mics didn't pick that up.
Yeah, I don't think so. Because in the middle, they started playing some random shit.
I know. I really hope the mics didn't pick that up.
I just stood there and he smoked like one whole cigarette. I think it was
like blur him out.
I don't know. I'll try, but I don't know.
Also, I need to learn video editing from you, yeah.
Dude, I don't use any. Okay, wait. How do we end this? So, thank you so much again for watching, and hope this helped. That was the whole intention.
Yeah.
Hope this helped, and yes, reach out to her, or if you know anyone who can benefit from this video, please send it to them.
Yeah.
And
what is that? Like, share, subscribe.
Like, share, subscribe
to
my channel. And yep, that's it. Thank you. Have a nice day.